All right, so if we look at some of those things that we've been discussing then, like in game design, how does it work when we develop a certain thing? How do we proceed?
It started with me doing some sketches in my notepad, and then I always try them out in the prototype first. So I make some simple changes in the prototype that I made in the beginning, see if it works, if it's fun, if it's balanced. It takes a while to get everything working as it should. And then we do some simple playtesting, if it adds something to the game as a whole, or if it just becomes a gimmick, or, for example, the dash function not really useful. And then afterwards, I give instructions. I write a short document showing the programmers this is what it should do, how, and make some charts. And then afterwards, I also discuss with the graphics how they should make it look, if it's something they need to think of, and if they have to add silhouettes to something, how it stands out, and everything, and so forth. Because it's a lot of, you have to think, you have to try and think, how will the player perceive this? How will they see, will they understand that that's what they should do with this, and so forth. It takes a while.
Yeah, and you always have to, like, if you take a specific part, you always have to motivate it at very many stages when you're doing the game design.
Yeah.
Like if you add, we could take a white laser, it affects how the story would perceive putting in a new element of some sort. It also makes the graphics want to have a certain look, and it affects maybe a theme. And programming obviously has to implement it so it works in a certain way.
Yeah.
That might differ, in the white laser case probably not, but it might differ a lot from other elements.
Also environmental things, not just enemies, but we wanted the player to understand that if you're in connected mode, then you're heavier. So you can't, for example, swing on the rope if you're in connected mode. And to try and make that more tangible, more realistic in a way, we added an air vent. So that if you jump on the air vent, you go up. But then if you're in connected mode, you won't go all the way up. So you have to split, and then you will manage to go over obstacles and so forth. So that's one way of showing that you're heavier. Or there are a bunch of ways to do it, but that was the more fun one.
Yeah. And it always has to be like connected, like as you're saying, logically to some kind of reality. Because that is how, like if you're a player and you want to play a certain situation, you have to have a communication with what the game designers are trying to tell you with a certain thing, because otherwise you might get confusion from a game element.
Yeah, it could make things completely abstract and really difficult to follow, but then the puzzles are going to get more difficult because you will look at an object and you won't really know how you can interact with it.
Yeah, and I mean, when we watch about how a certain thing works, we always have to consider what is the core of this game, and what do we actually want to do when we make either an added or removing something. Okay, so if we look at Robotsplit and unique features, because I mentioned like games that we have all been playing, puzzle platformers and platformers in general, and you would think that most people know what they're about. So why do we develop maybe a certain thing, or what is unique also to Robotsplit? How do we motivate a certain thing?
Well, I've often been told that you can't have too many mechanics in a game. It will confuse the player too much, and you should make it just cut off 80% of what you want to do. And I wanted to try if you could actually do it with most things anyway. So in our game, Styx is the main character. He is part of the puzzle, so you have to solve how to use all his abilities to go from A to B. It's an experiment. We'll see how it fares, but we've gotten really good response, positive feedback. So it seems as if people think it's fun to play. We've also tried to make sure that the button layout that it makes sense, so that if you're playing, you have an extension, it makes sense, it's easy to use, it's in the right place on the controller. To make sure that everyone can play the game as well as possible, we've made some changes for full stick so that buttons pop up. You don't have someone telling you what you need to do to finish the level. I don't really like that in certain games where you're stuck and then you can get a hint and then you'll see exactly what to do. Instead we just show the buttons because there are a lot of mechanics. You're not always gonna have all of them right in the back of your head. You're gonna have to sometimes get some feedback. Oh yeah, I can use the rocket shoes, and then the puzzle becomes much easier. Not too easy, but possible.
Yeah, and since we're having a lot of mechanics and unique things like splitting our robot, controlling different parts, and making puzzles solutions to those, naturally, what we want, since this is a retro-smelling game, I mean, it takes inspiration from what we like to do. It also makes sense that there are trial and error, a little bit like what you're saying. Instead of saying, this is how you solve this, we want people to be able to create their own solution. And I mean, sometimes it will go wrong, but we don't want to punish that. We want to encourage them to try out things.
I also try to make sure in the level design that no matter where you are, you can always finish the level. Doesn't always work because it's impossible to make sure that everything works perfectly, but if you make a mistake, then usually what happens is that you die and you go back a little bit, so you have to redo maybe one part of the game, of the level, and then you go to the next one again.
Yeah.
So it all goes very quickly, and it's we got checkpoints for the bigger levels. So.
Yeah, and like if we think also about like you were saying, if you get your buttons for you or like a menu or whatever, if you get to know what you can do, then at least when you forget that you have options, it will possibly say that to you so that you can just press something and see what happens. Because when you're getting stuck, the least thing you want to do is feel like I just can't do it.
Yeah. No, that's part of what the plan was, that to make an old school game that is quite difficult and quite pixel perfect sometimes, but also removes a lot of frustration, unnecessary frustration. And there's no point having the player stand on a platform thinking for 5 minutes, what am I supposed to do? Because they forgot maybe that they can use the extension in a certain combination. That's really, it's quite unnecessary, especially in this game. And it's been quite interesting when we did the recent playtesting that they play the same levels as before, but this time they don't get stuck at the same places because they get the button layouts, they do those puzzles, and after just a few levels they don't even think about it anymore because they've seen it so many times. Now they know what to do.
Yeah.
It works as a prolonged tutorial in a way, and it works really well.
Yeah. Okay, so that was all for game design then. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
And next up we will be talking a little bit about graphics and the changes that has been mostly then since the 10 weeks period, but also a little bit about how we construct graphics for a game, specifically then for Robotsplit. So I hope that you keep checking our Twitter, Robotsplit, and our Facebook, also Robotsplit. And very, very soon there will be a demo, so you will all be able to try out the game. And until the next game development diary, we say thank you for watching, and until next time.